My favorite Uncle George always talked to me about the military, and he had served in the military. And as I was growing up, he continued to mentor and push me to it. And I guess the catalyst for me changing and looking at it more favorable, it was the Berlin crisis that was happening in and around 1961, 1962, and stuff like that. And he was encouraging me to look at that as an option to volunteer from his spirit of volunteering. That you see across the screen that I was about to face and be a part of. Great-grandmother always talked to me about men in uniform in terms of counseling and you know, what she would expect from me as a young man in uniform, and the respect for that uniform outweighed everything else. So in terms of talking about character, that's what she was talking about. I expect to see that in you. And so there I was down there at Fort Jackson, basic training, and I think I was in the 5th Battalion there. And so, so while I was there, I got on the battalion boxing team and was successful from that. I come from a family of prize fighters and athletes, and so that was the natural thing for me to do, grow up in that area, since on Sundays, the family would get together and everybody would put those gloves on as a family, and they would place their bets. So that was a great time. The recruiter back home in Philadelphia, we began to sit down and talk about the options that was available and everything. And he was a parachutist himself, and he was saying, look, if you're going in, man, you only want to go in and be the best. So that kind of stuck with me. And so when I had the opportunity, that's what I did when I volunteered for jump school. And from jump school, again, that set another high bar for me to achieve, because after jump school, the SF recruiter appeared on stage. And then with his presentation, several of us volunteered for SF training. Ranger School was very, very competitive, being in a battalion, because you had to compete against the men who were going to Ranger School. And normally you only got 1 or 2 slots for the battalion. And in that case, I forget, I think there was 6 or 8 of us for 1 slot. And I managed to come out victorious in that training program and the rigorous concept that they had for ensuring that you do well when you go to Ranger School. Didn't know that was Target. There was a lot of things going on in the world at that time. Hostages were being taken. I think there was an ambassador someplace that was seemed like under house arrest at one of the agencies or something. And so there was a call that would go out that said Bull Simon would be at the theater looking for volunteers for an unknown mission, something like that. And so my sergeant major at the time, Hank Bailey, he said, "Hey, I would recommend you going," and especially Sergeant Major Davis, who played a big role into it. So I went over, and I was one of the first to get my records, and I went over and got my records, and went to the first interview. And
now, had you ever met Colonel Simon?
No, I had never.
Any of these guys before?
The two sergeant majors, yes, but Colonel Simon and our surgeon, Dr. Cataldo, Joseph Cataldo. And I sat there with Sergeant Major Davis and went through that interview process with those folks.
So what was that like? What are they asking you?
They were asking nothing that would give you the clue of what we did. You know, asked me about would I be able to use a acetylene torch underwater or something. I'm not even scuba qualified, but and so they read my citations from my previous thing, and there was some questions similar to what's being asked now, how I feel about that and this and stuff. And so I answered those genuinely and to the best of my ability. And I was told that we'd be notified who are selected by posting names on the bulletin board. They gave a time and place for that. So in the meantime, another guy that's keep reoccurring in my conversation, Vladimir Jakovenko, John as we call him, came over to the house for lunch. And he came in and said, Tyrone, did you volunteer? You know, I said, yeah, I did. He said, I knew you would. And I said, he said, well, I'm gonna go get my records too. And I think it was like that, or he had already done it. I said, okay. So we're sitting there, we're eating. And my wife sitting back here, this is a touchy moment for her. Probably about where you sitting at, young lady. We're leaving out the door. And she looked up at both of us and said, you guys are at it again. I said, no, babe. Now, mind you, I had only been home 6 months. And she said, you guys are at it again. I said, look, I said, they're not going to pick us. They had about 300 to 500 people to come out there. I said, some of these guys are really accomplished. They've been hanging around here for a long time, you know. She says, watch what I say. We didn't communicate with him too much, but when he spoke, it was loud. Although he had a house voice when he did it. So when I mean it was loud, it means that you were leaning in and you were listening. He didn't waste any words. He was very busy at his end, but Bud Sidnor was the ground force commander, and he was hands-on every day with us as we trained. And so as the leader of the gang, Colonel Simons, he was, I would say when you're young and you looked at the character of a soldier, you know, those guys didn't have to say anything. They didn't have to announce themselves. Their legendary status preceded them. And so you realized that you were in the environment and the company of somebody special. And so everybody would fall on their sword for that man. You know? General Manner, the overall force commander, had been back and forth, and then sometimes with Colonel Simon, getting the briefings and strategically setting things up with coordination with the Navy, the pilots, and everybody else that was involved in it. And we first got a rumor that whatever we were going to do we were going to do it in October. But according to weather intelligence, in the moon phase, it just was not an ideal situation for us. And I'm not certain if it was a typhoon in the area at that time or just prior to us getting there because of the prisoners were moved. But that was the situation that we learned of it. We got all called over to the theater there on the CIA compound, and the colonel stood up and gave us a situation report. And at that time, he announced a target. And he also, at that time, said that before he began, if anybody feel they can't go or whatever, you can leave the room now, and there would be no, thing held against you or whatever. And then he announced a target. And when he did that, he got a standing ovation and a thunderous hand clap. And that tells you we were ready. And one of his favorite quotes, I don't know if I could do it verbatim, it said, we're going to rescue 70 some odd prisoners of war, and that if things go wrong, we got 30 minutes in which to do that and exfil. And if things go wrong, do not thinking about coming home. Right. I carried 2 laws, Car 15, an M79, maybe 2 bandoliers. The pouches had loose rounds in it with the magazines set up high on it. There was also a extra box of machine gun rounds for the machine gunner, and 45 pistol, the knife, and those were the lethal weapons that I carried. That's a pretty good load. So that's where the physical fitness and endurance comes in, to be able to carry that load into combat. And but it was set up where if we went into our alternate plan, I was to receive or pick up a bag of hand grenades at the same time, because now we're going into close quarters combat, and we had to do that. We had to take over that commitment from the assault team when we went into the alternate plan.